Students, in Chapter 2, we are going to be working on dividing whole numbers. So in our vocabulary for Chapter 2, we are going to encounter some review words, and we're going to also encounter some words that we might not also remember. So this vocabulary builder is going to help prepare us to be successful when we come across these different terms throughout Chapter 2. So we're going to start with the vocabulary builder, and we're going to read the directions for visualize it. It says complete the flow map using the words with the check mark. So if we go to the review words, we're only going to use the ones that have the check mark. So what we should do is we should just start off from the top and reading the words. Dividend, divisor, factor, product, quotient. So notice, boys and girls, I only read those terms because those were the terms that are going to be used for this particular flow map. We're not going to use the other terms right now. So it says inverse operations. So we have a factor 4 times another factor, which is 3, equals 12. And we also know that we refer to 12 as our product in a multiplication problem. Now, because I use those different terms from my review words, I'm going to go into the box and cross them off. It's always a good strategy because when I go back to this, I'm not going to go back and look at those terms because they've already been used. So it just makes things easier for me so I don't make any mistakes. Now, boys and girls, this is called a flow map because we can use the flow of this map to help us how to relate multiplication to division. So it says a factor times a factor is equal to a product. However, if we want to use inverse operations to figure out an answer, a product becomes the dividend in a division problem. And notice, again, we have the number 12, which is the product in this case, but when we're doing a related division fact, it becomes the dividend. Now, the dividend is divided by the divisor, which in this case, in our related division fact, was the factor in the multiplication problem. And lastly, we have the answer. The answer, which in our division problem is a quotient. However, we know in the related multiplication sentence, it was a factor. So if we use this flow map, factor times factor equals product, 4 times 3 equals 12, we can use division to help us solve this problem as well. We can say 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4, our quotient. Now we're going to go on to the next part of this vocabulary builder. Students, in the next part of this activity, we're going to work on understanding the vocabulary. So let's read the directions before we start. It says use the review words to complete each sentence. So the review words are this entire box, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through and read the review words. Compatible numbers, dividend, divisor, estimate, factor, partial quotients, product, quotient, remainder. So we're going to start with number 1. You can estimate to find a number that is close to an exact amount. Number 2, numbers that are easy to compute mentally are called compatible numbers. And notice again, boys and girls, I'm going through, and as I use these terms from my review words, I'm crossing them out. Number 3, the remainder is the amount left over when a number cannot be divided evenly. Four, a method of dividing in which the multiples of the divisor are subtracted from the dividend and then the quotients are added together is called partial quotients. 5, the number that has to be divided in a division problem is the dividend. And 6, The quotient is the number, not including the remainder, that results from dividing. So students, there is a lot of rich vocabulary in division. It's really important that you understand the difference between these terms, because if you understand the language and what the language is speaking about and asking of you, it will be much easier for us to practice the mathematical concepts presented in Chapter 2 together in the class. So don't forget, as part of your nightly math homework expectations, you should be reviewing the math vocabulary cards that you cut out at the beginning of the Chapter 2 book. Remember, we should be reviewing those each night because each and every lesson we will be introduced to these words again, but in relation to the math that we will have to learn in those lessons.